think we are on number 10 of this Q&A video series, and we are still going strong through these. I know you guys are getting them in bits and pieces and spurts over the course of a few weeks, but for me this is all one sitting, so forgive me if my voice is starting to go and I'm starting to look a little peaked as a result. As lovely as you people all are, I'm sure, from that side of the computer, it's getting to be a bit of a grind in itself right now. But here we go, 10 minutes on the clock. Chris Gay, what to you defines novice, intermediate, and advanced lifter? That's a really good question. I'm not sure if I have thought about it to much of an extent. I think if you're a novice lifter, you are new to it and you're pretty much uncomfortable with what you're doing. You have a lot of unanswered general questions that you're needing answered to kind of get yourself started. An intermediate level lifter is someone who I feel is pretty confident in what they're doing and has built up a solid foundation. I don't like to relate it to amount of time because your knowledge and your body are sometimes different at different places when it comes to the progression through that. I think an advanced lifter, though, is someone who is comfortable competing, is writing their own programming, or is capable of writing their own programming, and has had some pretty significant physical gains. I think they're usually at a much slower advancement level, but they can handle a lot more work safely. So I guess those are kind of my generic ways of approaching it. If you're asking a whole lot of questions to me, like what should I do, what do you think I should do, I'd say that's usually a novice kind of thing. An intermediate is a little bit more comfortable with, I'm doing this, but I'm still not quite there yet. And when you're an advanced lifter, I think you generally tend to know it. Erwin Magne, what modifications do you make when programming Shako? When do you replace partial deadlifts with full range of motion deadlifts? How many percents do you generally drop add when replacing the deficit deadlift, deadlift the knees, and deadlift from blocks? What program do you suggest from coming straight off of Smolov with generally higher volume, not as much as Smolov as an intermediate lifter? Okay, so the modifications that I make for me when I'm running a Shako template are generally all done in either the accessory movements or in the deadlifts. I don't like doing partials of anything. I've never been a fan of it. I don't like it. It's not something that I have found in my lifting experience to benefit me, Ben Rice, personally. A lot of other people have had different experiences with that, and that's totally fine. And if it works for you, do it. If it doesn't work for you, get rid of it. I use a lot of RPE when it comes to replacing movements. If it tells me that it wants me to do block pulls or rack pulls, and I don't want to do those, I want to pull them from the floor, I will generally replace the rep range. I won't think about it in terms of percent. I will look at it and say, okay, well, they want me to do 4 sets of 4 of block pulls. Well, I'm going to do a 4x4 from the floor, and I'm going to make a guess of something that I feel like I could get for 4 reps consistently, but it's going to push me. I'm going to do my first set, kind of a shot in the dark, but I have enough an understanding of my body and how I go about it to know about what that weight range is, and then I will base my subsequent 3 sets off of how that first set went. So it's kind of, you base it off of your perceived exertion. So it's not about percentage when dropping from that point. It's about percentage, or it's about the rep range for me. And what do I suggest for coming straight off of a Smolov? I use Smolov as, that is my meet prep peaking cycle. I will run that, and then I will take a week off and I will do a meet for it, and then afterwards I will drop my, I'll keep my volume high, I'll keep my frequency high, but I will probably deload my intensity for a couple of weeks just to let my connective tissue repair and let my joints have a break, because it's so crazy coming off of the intense phase of Smolov. It's just, your body aches all the time from how tough it is on you. John Charnley, for a novice to intermediate lifter, my squat is weak compared to my deadlift. I pull around 210 kilos sumo and squat around 160 kilos. But on my 5x5 sets, I tend to turn them into squat mornings after 100 kilos on the last set. I've been told that the best thing to do is just repeat each week where form is even slightly off, and progress by adding 2.5 kilos each week. Everybody's different. Everyone progresses differently. It depends on your experience, your comfort level with different things, your technical proficiency in general. Generally, if you're able to add weight to the bar, I just did a video about this well, for you guys it might be a couple weeks ago, but I did a video about this called Breakdown, where I talked about how it's okay to experience some form breakdown in the later thing. It's actually a good thing occasionally to get used to it so you're comfortable and aren't bombing max effort lifts because your form starts to break down, you're not used to it. If your technique is consistently bad for a number of reps on multiple sets in a workout, I would say that you're not ready to add weight to it next time. But I would say that a slow progression over time is key, and practicing the lift is more important. So maybe add some frequency in, get really good at squatting, and get more comfortable with your technique, staying consistent, and then add weight based off of that. If it is breaking down, you need to change something, because if it's breaking down all the time, you need to change something, because it's no good to practice something poorly consistently. So I hope that helps. Continue the rest of your question. Is this the best way to go about it, or is there an alternate way to keep my form good and keeping progression rates high? I will say, when it comes to progression rates, like I always say, keep it slow. There's no reason to go fast. If something is worth doing, if you want to keep doing this for a length of time, you have to give yourself time to do it. And you have to understand that it takes time to get better, and fast progress is often fleeting progress. Slow and steady will win in this, because you can maintain it longer, and the progress you make is more solid and will stay with you longer, in my experience. Mark McLaughlin: hey Ben, what advice would you give if you're coming back to the gym weaker after a deload and keeping your calories above maintenance and using 50 to 60% of your 1 rep max for a given lift? Is there any alterations that you would make to make sure that you don't lose strength during a deload? I've said it before, I generally do not deload unless I need one. I do not plan out my deloads in advance, like I will do this and this and this and then I will deload, unless I'm going into a meet. I will plan to deload for 3 or 4 days before a meet, but my volume and frequency are usually so high that a deload makes me feel like creaky and garbage and rusty on all my technique. And so I like to train frequently all the time, and I don't worry so much about the percentages when I am deloading. I just kind of rest like my body feels like it needs to. If you're getting weaker from deloads, then you're doing them wrong. I don't know how else to say it. If you're coming back and every single time you do a deload, you're starting way weaker, than you should feel better from a deload. That's the way it's supposed to work. And maybe that means that you should deload a little heavier in the sessions and take more time through the rest of the time doing your recovery work outside of the gym. That's equally important. If you're doing everything right, your nutrition's solid, you said you're above maintenance, and if you're getting enough rest and you're recovering adequately, and you're doing your mobility work and you're rolling out and you're doing all this other stuff, you shouldn't need frequent deloads, and you definitely shouldn't be getting weaker from them. So I hope that gives you some idea of what to do. But I don't have. I mean, just focus on everything else so that you don't have to deload as frequently if you're coming back weaker from them. That's my answer for that officially. John Charlie again. Don't ask too many questions, but what are the best exercises for glute activation and glute strength? Squat and deadlift. Low bar squat really engages your posterior chain. Your glutes get pretty torched if you're doing high rep squats like that. And then deadlifting, you have to squeeze your glutes pretty hard. Stiff leg deads are really good. And then I used to do a lot of hip thrusts. I used to do a lot of like glute bridges and things like that. I mean, anytime that you're pushing your pelvis forward and squeezing your butt cheeks together, that's glute activation. So find a way to load that exercise, that movement, so that you're working towards overcoming a force, just like with any other exercise. Jordan Mason: your bench programming often seems quite random and arbitrary. Do you ever utilize, say, Smolov Jr. while peaking for your bench for a competition? I know it seems random and arbitrary. It's not. It's definitely planned. During my building season or my off season, I do a lot of Shaco stuff, which is based off of percentages in a program that I'm getting based off of a training max. And when I'm going into a meet, I usually do a 9 to 12 week progressive overload cycle where I'm adding 5 pounds of something. I like working with doubles. I like working with sets of 5, because those are the things that I found the most progress with. And people often criticize my bench press because it's not as impressive compared to my squat or my deadlift, but just for a little bit of perspective, my bench was so far below where it is now. I benched 385 in my last competition, threw away a 385 by by lifting my butt for no reason, had to come back, take it again. I thought I would have been good for a 400-pound bench at that contest. This next one, I'm very confident that that number is going to fall. But before, I was squatting in the 600s. I was deadlifting close to 700, and my bench was in the low 300-pound range. So I've made extreme progress on that based off of what I'm doing. So as arbitrary or random as it may seem, it's working for me. And so if you have any more specific question about that, you might want to check out some of my videos, like leading into my last bench program. I have run Smolov Jr., I have run a couple of bench programs. Generally, they haven't worked as well for me as the stuff that I've done for myself and programmed for myself. So that's the answer. Went a little bit over time this time, but we're getting these questions answered. Still going strong. No idea how many of these are left, but I've got to be getting close because I've done 10 of these things now. So look forward to the next one. It'll be coming out soon. Woo, 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 woo.